Hey guys,
Hi,
I'm just going to give it a
Serein.
couple seconds to get Lindsay to hop on
I'm
here.
gonna make my
Welcome
chair
to
go
the
up a little
first
higher.
official live for Behind the Beauty podcast. We're very excited to be doing this, adding a new element to the podcast. And
Hi. There we
hi,
go.
there we
Hello.
go.
So nice to see
Yay!
you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you so much for being our first live guest for the podcast.
I'm so excited. This is so fun. Sorry, I'm like
Yay!
getting my little my iPhone all set up over here. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday! Okay, so those of you guys joining, welcome to Behind the Beauty podcast. This is the live version. If you miss any part of it, it will be available on IGTV as well as the audio portion will be on all your podcast listening devices. But welcome, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for so before we get too far into it, let's do an intro. So Lindsay is the founder and CEO of Bite Toothpaste. I actually am a huge fan, so I'm very excited that we get to do this. But why don't you give a little summary of what Bite is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we make plastic-free personal care products. We started with toothpaste. We make dry little toothpaste tablets that come in glass jars with aluminum lids and compostable refill pouches. So our whole mission is to take plastic out of the equation of our daily routines, starting with toothpaste.
And we've actually been using it in our household. It's awesome. You wouldn't
Thanks.
think it's like you're not missing anything by switching to this plastic-free option. Um, so I this is kind of like this was started as your side hustle.
Hmm.
And because you're trying to solve a problem from your previous job when you're traveling a lot. Can you
Yes.
tell a little bit about how you're like, aha, I should fix this?
Yeah, exactly. So I was working as a TV producer. I've always been really passionate about the environment. So before I was even working in TV, I was a surf instructor and a snowboard instructor, and I actually I was teaching my surf lessons just like right outside where I live now still. I just kept on seeing more and more plastic wash up on my board, and I was like, this is just kind of seeing this change. Like even in those 4 years, I was very cognizant of the problem, and so I wanted to get a job in TV. I wanted to make nature documentaries. So I started kind of working my way up, and I was working as a TV producer on the show House Hunters, and I was traveling all around the US, and I kind of had everything else sorted. I had my shampoo, my conditioner, my face wash, and I could refill it really easily, but I was throwing out toothpaste every time I got back
Hmm.
because you'd only be somewhere a few days. I had to go carry on only, and I was like, this just feels so wasteful. And so I started looking into it, and it turns out over 1 billion toothpaste tubes are thrown out every single year. And because it's a mixed material, there's aluminum composite, there's plastic, there's, paper, there's a bunch of things in it. You can't throw it in a curbside recycling bin. And so they all end up in landfills, oceans. It's actually the mass of the Empire State Building every single year, which is so much plastic when you think about it. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to find an alternative. I tried some powders, I tried some other tablets, but they were also in plastic. And so that was kind of the beginning of the journey of trying to figure out, how I could make this product for myself and then how it could work for other people who were traveling or who are also passionate about the planet as well.
And so you also did consult like any professional that you could get their time because you weren't just
Yeah.
like, I know enough about dentistry, I'm gonna make this.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in everybody's DMs. Like if I went to high school or college with you and you were in the dental profession or even any sort of background in chemistry, I was like,
Hmm.
"Hey, can I pick your brain on this? Can you talk to me?" And I would literally on my way back and forth to work, I live in LA, so there's traffic all the time. I
Yeah.
would set up calls and I would just have, back-to-back calls talking to anybody who would give me the time of day of being like, "What do you think of this ingredient? What do you think of that?" And then I did a lot of research on my own. There's so much that you can find. Like I went on Reddit and I found this thread where how to take chemistry. They were like from senior year of high school to PhD in organic chemistry. This is how
Wow.
you would take these classes for free from universities, so whether it was
Oh.
like all different universities, a lot of them, what people don't realize, a lot of universities actually put up different classes that you can take entirely for free after they go through. So I was just taking all of these classes like on a Saturday night, and just kind of being like, I guess I'm gonna be learning chemistry now. So yeah, there's so much you can do now, especially with, an internet connection. It's just you can learn anything you need.
Yeah. And you actually just started making this in your living room.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like, what was your expectation at first? Because you're like sitting there pressing these little tablets in, in your living room, putting them in these adorable refillable jars.
Thank you. Yeah, it was kind of, I think it's like any hobby or like that turns into an obsession where it's like you start with this like one thing of like, I'm going to try this, but then you get more and more curious. And I was investing more and more money where it was finally like, okay, like this hobby has grown into like this obsession. Like I'm going to start selling these online, like more than just, at first I would take them into work. I would, talk to other TV producers, and I would go to vegan and low waste networking or events here in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a longtime vegan, longtime person in the low waste space. So these are two things that were always part of places I would normally be. So I would go there and I would talk about my, zero waste products. And, from there, it became being like, okay, I should have an Etsy shop, and then I should have a Shopify shop. And then I was selling them online. And at first it was just all my friends and like friends of friends. And then I started seeing names that no one knew. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh my gosh, like this isn't a family member and this is not a friend or a friend or a friend. And I was just like, wow. And it was because there was these niche communities, like the zero waste and the vegan communities, that started posting about my product on their Instagram, on their Facebook. And so that was the beginning of how it all started.
And you kind of got a big break because you were mentioned in a magazine. Was it Women's Health?
Yeah. So we ended up so at the time, this was back in 2018, I feel like, viral Facebook videos were all the rage, and Women's Health was doing a spotlight on female founded businesses, and they would make videos on them, like every week. And so they contacted me and asked for some footage. And I literally shot it on an iPhone at like 6 a.m. before I was leaving for a shoot. Like I hardly had any makeup on, like I had bags under my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh. And then this video they edited it together and it just went crazy, crazy, crazy viral. And so that was really the beginning of being like, okay, I'm making these things in my living room. It takes me like a day to make like 60 bottles, right? Like a day. And like now it's like I have over $200,000 in orders. Like I need a manufacturer. Like I need business insurance. Like I need
Wow.
yeah. So that's kind of how it all started. And then ever since then, my longtime boyfriend also, he jumped in. He had done the design for the site, so he kind of jumped in, and we're triaging the situation. Just finding a manufacturer, getting everything set up with the website, and then since then it's just been growing ever since.
That's insane. So when you started, you didn't like put a cap on how many orders you could take.
No, I didn't even know how to do that. Honestly, I didn't know how to do that. I did end up having to shut it down, but like I had never had to do that on Shopify. Like, like at that point I had gotten, like I think a big day was like 10 orders, and I was like, oh, I can make that over the weekend. And so it was very much just like, I would make it, I would put it in a little thing, I would go to the post office and drop it off. And so, yeah, it was pretty intense.
That's a little insane because your previous profession, being a TV producer, that's not just a full-time, that's like a 24/7 job profession. I don't think people understand how much work that is and how involved that world is. Mm-hmm. And you were doing this on top of that.
Yeah.
And fulfilling orders. And so that's crazy. How did Women's Health find you?
They have just outreach where at that time they had producers who were looking at, I had been featured on some zero waste websites and zero waste Instagram things. So I think they were looking for women's businesses that were trying to do good. And so they just had an outreach program. So, and this was, I say now too, it's like things are so different now. The landscape has so changed, right? Like not every, outlet is clamoring for these viral Facebook videos. But the way I see it now, it's kind of like what Facebook was then, like TikTok is now, right? Where it's like, it's still kind of the Wild West. People are still like, figuring things out. Things are still going, crazy viral, even with small follower counts. And so I think it was, sometimes when you look back at the past, it's like what worked then didn't work now, but it does rhyme, right? So like, what's the next thing? And that, so that's kind of that.
Well, like, for example, this podcast has been around since 2017, but we're like, how can we make it a little bit more relevant? Everybody has a podcast now. When we originally started, there's only like a handful of women, like dominant podcasts. Right. And now everybody has one, which is great. It's really amazing to have so much more female driven content.
Right.
But it's like, how can we make it a little bit more different?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
and people wanted to meet the founders that we were interviewing, wanted to meet who I was talking to. And I was like, well, how are we going to do this? Like,
What a
without
cool, I mean,
everybody.
this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the way that too, I mean, this is the first time I've ever done a podcast, with an Instagram live, but I think like
Yeah.
this is the type of thing, like I feel the same with you where it's like we started in 2018 and now I feel like everyone has a CPG company and consumer packaged good, right? So, whatever you're selling online. And not only that, like so many people are getting into the sustainability space, which for me, it's like, that's amazing, right? Like that's what we need, just like with female founders, female podcasts, like that's what we want. But then you're like, but that also is really good because it forces us to think different and to be different and to like really differentiate. So I think it's, it keeps us on our toes and it makes the industry better. You know what I'm saying? Like you get to do creative things like this, which is super fun.
Yeah. And the thing about Bite, what I think is so fascinating is that before I experienced Bite, it was because I was actually looking into zero waste around the time you guys launched, and I had slowly replaced paper towels and straws and all that stuff. But the toothpaste was like getting to me, and the only thing I could find online were these DIY like baking sodas, some essential oils, and coconut oil. And I have a lot of dental problems, so I was like, I'm not going to trust myself to just use this. And it tasted, it wasn't pleasant.
Right.
And then there were some cleaner fluoride-free alternatives out there, but even though the tube was in metal, there was a plastic cap. They were always giving me a turnkey, which was just more metal out there. So yes, it's not plastic, but now I'm wasting metal. So when I forget who sent us your product, but we got it, and then my husband was like, oh wow, this is really good, I really like it. And he used to travel all the time. I'm talking like I saw him 3 days out of the week, and it was such a good solution, not even for the zero waste community or the more sustainability community, but truly for people who are traveling. Like, why do you have to keep buying these tiny little toothpaste?
Exactly. And even just from a bandwidth perspective, like for me, I was like having to buy them all the time. And I was like, it's like, and if you forget it, or, you're on a trip, like honestly, I was on a shoot in Denver and I got to the end of my toothpaste thing and I was like, I don't have any toothpaste. I was like, this is the worst. And with the tablets, it's like, you can plan out, I need this many for this day. And it's like, you're not going to be caught without it, and it's,
I was like the crazy person that I didn't want to waste half of my little travel toothpaste. So I have to bring another one plus the half one because you can't have anything over 4 ounces.
Right.
So, and I do love that. I love planning and being able to be like counting 2 a day. How many days am I going to be gone? So for those that are big travelers or even van life folks who don't want to constantly be buying things, this is great. And you now sell just the refills too, right?
Yeah, so the first one will come in a jar, and then after that, it comes in our compostable refill pouches. And the reason we do that is because we do all of our ingredients. We have stuck to a very strict mantra of just everything needs to be a clean ingredient, and they're very sensitive to moisture. So we want to make sure people have it in the right sized. When I first started, it was just people would just get the refills, and then some people were like storing them in like big mason jars that have a lot of air gap in there, and so sometimes it wouldn't keep the tablet as fresh. So this was kind of just like to minimize it. But yeah.
And during your journey of starting the toothpaste bits, you also discovered how much weird stuff was in our toothpaste.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing too that I think a lot of people don't even think about. If you're not too concerned with our plastic problem, or if you don't really travel all that much, like it's a very big concern of the fact that we don't even think to flip around and look what's on the back of our toothpaste tube, and like a lot of people I feel like, have gone sulfate free with their hair care and like PEG free with their, skin care. And then there it is in your toothpaste, and
in our mouth.
Exactly. And if you think about like your mouth, like that's literally, so I'm vegan, I have to take B12, I take B12 supplements. I take it by sublingually. So you sit under your tongue and it's only 15 seconds. So it's like, if you think about the fact that you're brushing your teeth for 2 minutes every day, you are ingesting this. And there's actually a study by the ADA where you swallow essentially an entire tube or entire blob of toothpaste every 7 days because you swallow a certain amount every single time you swallow. So like if you wouldn't eat it, you shouldn't be putting it in your mouth, which I feel like, it's like when you're talking to a kid, but it's true. And it's, I think it's something that I didn't think about at all. Like, it's not something that I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like I even had, before when I was like, in high school and college, you have the ones with like the little plastic, like glitter stuff in it, like the little, remember those were out with honestly with microplastics. That was one of the things that they came out in 2015. But I think it's just something that it's kind of like you don't think about it the same way. It's not the same amount of scrutiny as you think other things, but it actually is one of the things that you should probably be thinking about the most. And so like with ours, we don't use sodium lauryl sulfate. Some people don't realize that a lot of times I talk to people all the time. There's probably somebody listening to this podcast or on this IG live where if you have like, it's a disgusting word. It's called sloughing. It's like when the insides of your cheek peel, right? Which is a very, very common thing. That's actually an allergy to sodium lauryl sulfate, most likely. And so if you do have that happening, if that is something that's happening to you, usually if you switch to use a more natural toothpaste that doesn't have sodium lauryl sulfate, you'll be able to get rid of that. And we have so many people who write in being like, I didn't even know this was possible. I thought toothpaste just did this to everyone,
Yeah.
So there are certain things, it can make a really big difference.
Well, and even to go further, we're having kind of a fertility issue with a lot of the population. More and more people are struggling to conceive. There's so many factors for that, obviously, but a big thing is like, what are we immediately ingesting that we maybe shouldn't be ingesting? And I think because we grow up being taught like we need to brush our teeth twice a day, it has to be 60 seconds at each time, this is how we do it, that we don't really think about the products we're using because we're so focused on this is how we clean our teeth and it's so important. And I was very hesitant to try a clean toothpaste because I have so many dental issues and it's such a self-conscious thing. And so I was very, very nervous, but I have actually improved my dental situation by switching to cleaner products. I was really worried that first year, am I going to get cavities? Like, am I going to get more cavities than normal? And I actually didn't get any cavities when I had switched. So you're like, it can be just as effective, if not better for you.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, I think that's something that when there are ways to have very effective ingredients and have products that are made in a very clean way. And it's not anything entirely revolutionary, honestly. It's just looking at the science, talking to the dentist, and then figuring out what needs to come out and what's not. It is more expensive. Like, that's what I will say. Like, it is absolutely more expensive to use clean ingredients, to use something like nanohydroxyapatite, which is what we use. But we do that because it's better. And there's studies that prove that it works. And so that's kind of something that, I think if it's like, as we progress and as we find, the studies on fertility and plastic are very real, and they're becoming, and I think they're finally starting to come out more where people are seeing it and kind of getting aware of it. There was a really great Vice actually did a video series on it, and they're linking that was specifically on male fertility and plastic, but it's just they're very real problems. They're very new problems. And I think that it is going to be the smaller businesses that are thinking outside the box, and that also aren't like there's a lot of big businesses that they are benefited by the status quo, right? And so they're not, change is not beneficial to them, but the small businesses that are coming up with new innovative solutions, I think that's where the future is going to be when it comes to these types of products.
Yeah, and as much as it is important for the consumer to be focused on more of like a low waste lifestyle, it really comes down to the corporations. And the only way we really have control is by voting with our dollars and demanding that from the bigger corporations, but supporting these smaller businesses like you who are innovating the space, but also being responsible towards our environment so that we can maybe try and save what's left. It's always fascinating that we're always kind of like, I feel overwhelmed because I'm like, okay, I've reduced my plastic somewhat. It's almost impossible for me to completely reduce it, or be zero waste, I mean, but it's not hard for me to just switch to a reusable water bottle or eliminate straws and things like that. However, it's so frustrating because really the biggest impact is going to be from the corporations, and they're not going to do anything until they start losing money.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, and that's the most exciting and frustrating thing, right?
yeah.
And the way that I kind of look at this is that it's, there is this huge debate between, individual responsibility and corporate responsibility. And I think that they are both incredible. Like, it's a multifaceted problem that has multifaceted solutions, right? But what I would say is that when it comes to like the easiest way to kind of see, or at least the way that I see this going, is you look at something like the vegan movement, right? So veganism is, I think, about like 10 years ahead of the zero waste movement. People were talking about going vegan, about 10 years before. But think about all of the new vegan stuff that's coming out, right? And so and whether you're vegan or not, that's not the the point I'm trying to make, but it's that these small choices that people made over time are shifting industries. When you look at, Taco Bell now has a fully vegan menu, making this accessible to everybody. Same with, Domino's or Pizza Hut just came out with a vegan pepperoni pizza. When you look at the fact that these, like IKEA just came out with something that's vegan that you can get, but these things were absolutely not accessible to people, anybody, 5 years ago, but because, our choices do matter. These big businesses, Starbucks, Domino's, whatever, are like, we need to get on board with this. There are enough people who are doing this. And I do think that the zero waste movement is right behind that. And I think that the businesses are going to be like, okay, there's enough people who are making enough noise that we need to appeal to this audience. And for me, I kind of see our place in the industry as like, we prove out the market and the big guys will make it more accessible. And I think that any other way, like, we have to all play together in this space because we're all fighting, like, literally for the health of our planet. And it's not like, there's no way small businesses like mine where we don't have the scale to do it the way the big guys can. And, but we can prove out that there is a market. There are people who care. They're willing to buy this product and invest in these types of companies, like voting with their dollars. And then the big guys, whether they're doing it for altruistic or whether they're doing it, because they need to survive, they then will have to be like, well, shoot, we need to make toothpaste tablets too, and if that gets, plastic out of our system, it's good. And so, since 2018, the past year, actually, we've seen big paste, we call them, come out with toothpaste tablets. And it's funny, actually, in the Amazon description, they called them bite-sized toothpaste bits. And we're like, like, do it, because this is how it catches on. This is how movements are made, where it's not just the fringe small businesses. It's actually, it's everyone. And we're all together fighting for the same goal.
So while we started with toothpaste bits, is there anything coming up that you can share, or is it just all like on lockdown still?
So we started with toothpaste bits, and then we started making mouthwash bits, and now we have a full oral care suite. We actually we released the first and only plastic-free teeth whitening gel. And I'll have to send you some. It's in a glass bottle with an aluminum lid, and it's a bamboo brush with castor bean oil bristles. So 100% plastic-free, the first and only. And then we're going to be later on this year, kind of our first foray into personal care. So I can't say much about it now, but I'm super excited, and I'll definitely send you as soon as we have that, but that'll be kind of becoming, getting out of just oral care, which is, such an important space, but then also kind of doing exactly the same thing that we did here, but at a larger scale for personal care.
That's amazing. Now, where can people find the products right now?
So we're at trybite.com, so TRYBITE.com, and fully there. We're also in we're actually in Erewhon here in Los Angeles, which is a local business that we love and we love supporting. So online at trybite.com.
Awesome. And then I always, people who listen in on the podcast always are so fascinated by these, I guess I don't want to discredit the hard work, but it's seemingly overnight success.
Yeah.
And you're pretty much living a lot of entrepreneurs' dreams of side hustle into full-time full-time work, full-time brand, company, launching new things. So what is like the pros and the cons of that?
It's a great question. So I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing in overnight success.
No.
It was,
Yeah.
and that's just so important for people to know that. Like I had been working on Bite, honestly, I was working two full-time jobs, like for almost 2 years before Bite went viral, right? So, well, a year and a half before Bite went viral. And I think, and then even after Bite went viral, I didn't want to leave my TV job in a bad way. I wanted to make sure that they were taken care of. So I needed to find, hire, and train my replacement. So Bite was going crazy viral. I was like looking for manufacturers and I was training the girl to replace me so I didn't leave them in a bad spot. I was there for 2 months. But I think that, what that did was really, entrepreneurship is a lot of work and it's, I mean, it's 24/7. It's like, it's a really funny, I saw this meme the other day where it was like, I wanted to quit my 9 to 5 and start my own business. Now I have a 24/7.
Yeah.
And like, that's like very true. And so I think, but working those two jobs, Bite at night and TV producer during the day really helped me cultivate the work ethic and the stamina that having your own business demands. And so it was kind of like there wasn't this big shift of being like, oh my gosh, now my business is taking over my life, because it really had already been like that for so long. But I think, the pros are that you get to, I feel incredibly fortunate that I didn't take venture funding. I was able to be customer funded. I was able to, grow my business the way that I want to in a, controlled, sustainable way. And then the cons are the fact that you're constantly making trade-offs, right? So it's like, it is you are the one who is responsible for your company's ultimate success or failure. And it's not, there's no clocking in and clocking out. Like even with my TV job, I mean, that was really demanding, but like if I took a vacation, I could turn my phone off. Like that does not happen in the land of, at least at the stage that we're in, right? Like maybe one day, but not now. And I don't resent it in any way. But it's very, very hard. And I think that, and it's very demanding. And I think that anybody who does want to do this, like to definitely know, it's like the most rewarding thing, but it's also the most challenging. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest misconception. They're like, I don't want to work my 9 to 5 anymore. And I'm just like, oh, so you want to work 24/7?
Yeah, exactly. Be like, do you know what you just traded for? I mean, like, look, it's worth it. I love it. But like, you got to be very I think you want to go in fully understanding what you're getting into.
And I also want to point out, like, just when you think you have it, like just when you're like, oh, I think I have a good balance, like, for me, I had a baby. So like, wait.
Yep.
And in my mind, I was like, I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah.
No.
Congratulations, by the way.
You.
But yeah, talk about time management. You just have a crash course in time management skills right there. Which is amazing.
I thought I was more efficient, and then suddenly you have this thing that's like attached to you 24/7. And I'm so grateful we have an amazing nanny, but it's still like, I don't know how anybody starts anything with a baby, more or less come back to work. So it's like, it's seriously, it's never going to, those who fantasize and dream about leaving their 9 to 5, just be prepared. It is a 24/7. And even when you're growing it and once things are stable, you're always going to have to be doing something, because I think the hardest thing, especially when you're so passionate about what you do, yes, you get to maybe hire another person and help and train them, but you have to be involved. I think the biggest detriment to companies or brands is that when the original passion, the founder, takes a step back.
Right. I totally agree. And the idea of thinking, I think it's like, and I did this, right? You think that you're going to get to the point where you're like, I'm feeling confident and good. Like I'm done. This is going to just kind of run, and I'm going to be able to like have these like calm mornings and like have a weekend, and like it like literally is never done. I know that's cliche, but it's like, because and I'm sure with you, you have a baby, and there's also where it's like with your business, you finally master like level 1, and you don't realize you just began level 2. And there's
Yep.
like whole new bad guys and whole new challenges. And like, you're like, oh, I got to get to the top of level 2 now. And then you get to level 2 and you're like, cool, is it time to break? Like, nope, you just got to level 3. And so it's kind of like, you have to definitely, it doesn't end. You've got to love the game. But it is a fun game. And it's all about kind of leveling up, getting better, faster, better, faster.
I think the biggest trade-off is that you are passionate about your 24/7 job instead of your 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
And you truly don't mind putting in those late hours or, you know, sacrificing a social life sometimes or other things. And you especially truly believe in what you're doing. You're doing something that can help the planet, which we desperately need right now. I look around the beach, I like look around our environment, and I'm like, what kind of a planet am I leaving my baby? Is she going to even get to see these things? Like, you know, certain animals, will the beach even be a place I can take her?
Yeah.
So it's a crisis. And if you're listening, watching, I encourage you to not just, it's not all or nothing. I think I went a little extreme and it wasn't sustainable. So I had to kind of find my version of that. And if it's as simple as just being like, I'm going to never use a plastic water bottle again. And even to this day, if I forget my water, I will buy a glass one because I'll spend that extra $2. That's something I can do. And it's just something you want to like really focus on. What are some of your tips? Because as the head of essentially a zero waste personal care brand, what would you recommend someone listening?
Yeah, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, you know, one of the things that we have on our site is every bit counts, you know, and it's really true. It's our daily routines that make up the biggest changes, right? That we can personally make, right? So what I would recommend, you know, what was super important to me starting Bite was that I didn't want Bite to feel like a sacrifice. I wanted it to look beautiful, taste really good, be effective, and be something that people enjoy using, right? So look at the things in your daily life that you're using every morning, every night, and see if there's a sustainable alternative for that item. And you might not be able to do all of it. Maybe you want to use a certain sunscreen, right? And you are not going to use a zero waste sunscreen. That's totally cool. But try a bamboo toothbrush or try, you know, a shampoo bar. And so I think it's all about there are so many ways that you can make a difference, which, you know, that's why the problem feels gigantic, you know, because it is, but that's also why there's opportunity for every single person to make a difference and to choose the fast that you want to be. And we need people making these differences from all across, whether you're choosing to, you know, have less meat in your diet, whether you're choosing to never buy a plastic water bottle, whether you're choosing to, you know, go to Bite or use a shampoo bar. There's just so many different things that you can do, or, you know, writing your Congress person and, you know, trying to get things passed through. Like just in California, we had a bill that went up that didn't pass. And it's like, wow, against plastic that didn't pass. And so these are the types of things of, you know, there's so many different ways to make a difference depending on where your passion is. It can get overwhelming super fast. So do the small things that give you that immediate good feeling, because that's how you're just going to it's like building any habit, you know, and that's how you're just going to get better and do more things. So, yeah.
So once again, where can everyone find Bite?
Yes. So trybite.com or on our Instagram. So it's @Bite. And we're also on TikTok @Bite, and trybite.com. So, and we have a lot of zero waste tips, tricks, ideas on there as well. We have a fully fleshed out blog as well as our Instagram. So if you're looking to learn more also about zero waste, climate change, and then even just clean personal care, we have a whole bunch of information there.
Awesome. Before we leave, what are like 3 products you can't live without outside of Bite? Because that's an obvious given.
Yes. Okay. Sunscreen. So I cannot live without it. And so that's something that I have not switched to zero waste. So when I travel, I do use a zero waste one. But here, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting. I'm spacing. Alta MD. I use their mineral sunscreen.
It's so
I use
good.
that every single day. And I use it twice a day. Like I got really into sunscreen, especially in my 30s. And then I guess, 3 products. Sunscreen, lip balm, but that one I do use. I have a tin. I forgot what brand it is, the rose one.
Okay.
And then, yeah, which is great. And then one more product, I guess, and Bite. There we go.
Okay.
I gotta get Bite.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying to actually think. I'm like, if I was stranded on a desert island, what would I bring? And I'm like, sunscreen, chapstick, toothpaste. Like those are or not chapstick, but like the lip balm.
Yeah,
Toothpaste.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we
What are
all
three
like,
of yours?
oh gosh. Sunscreen also, but I'm not
Yeah.
loyal to one.
Mm.
So I think in the winter I do like Raw Elements, the tinted one in the
Yep.
tin,
Yep.
but during the summer it's too greasy on me.
Yep.
And
I
then
use that one on trips, which is so that exactly, but I don't use
yeah,
the tinted one. I use the white one, and I
does it rub in?
not really.
Okay.
But I bought it, and so I was like this, and it lasts forever. So I was like, well,
Yeah.
here we go. I guess so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the tinted one next.
The tinted one's much better, but I have oily skin, and then like with the heat, so and in the
Mm,
winter that's what I'll use, but like in the
mhm.
summer I'm like I gotta use like other things. And then I really love the Naturium Phyto lip balm right now. It's got like a little tint. It's
Love it.
not zero waste, however, they do use sugar cane
Mm,
or post-consumer plastic in their
cool,
packaging, which I
cool.
think is like I have to do more research on it, but I don't know what your thoughts are. Is it better to use the plastic that's already out there and reuse it, or should we just find a complete alternative? I don't
I
know.
think I prefer recycled over sugarcane, just
Hmm.
because sugarcane actually, I believe, and like fact check me on this because I actually don't, because we're just like a no plastic company. So I like did a bunch of research, but I don't keep up on this, and there's always innovation happening. But I believe when I was looking at this like 2 years ago, anything that I found with sugarcane actually still had petroleum based plastic
Oh,
mixed in. So I was like, well, that doesn't totally solve the problem. But I do think that recycled is cool because it's helping that market, right?
yeah.
I'm not a
Just
huge, I
reuse
would
it.
prefer aluminum glass refillable, I mean, or refillable plastic.
Hmm.
Recycled plastic would be great. But I mean, it is good to be able to reuse these things. So
Yeah,
yeah.
like, oh, you froze for a sec. I definitely do support when they at least use what's out already been produced, but my issue is like how much of it is being like absorbed into my body. Um,
Yeah, which is a very legitimate concern.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the third product, brows. I have to fill in my brows.
Oh,
So,
that's a good
yeah.
call. Yeah. Hmm.
I mean, I don't need to wear makeup, but if I had like 2 minutes, it's gonna be my brows.
What do you
So
use for that?
currently I'm using Kosas, and what I did like is that the Air Brow, which is like the little brow mascara, they use vegetable fiber because I didn't realize this, but the fiber in our brow products have plastic. It's usually plastic,
I didn't even know that.
and that
Wow.
just washes
Wow.
into the sink.
Yeah. Terrible.
So
Yep.
that was something that like really stuck with me when I learned about the product. I was like, oh, it's vegetable. It's
That's cool.
biodegradable. So that's cool. So I've been using that. So those are my three products.
Your
that I
eyebrows look
can.
fantastic, by the way.
Oh,
They look
thank
great.
you.
They look great. Okay, that's great to know. I mean, I knew that before, some mascara actually would use animal hair, as like the hairs that you like go on. So that's why it's really important to look for vegan and cruelty-free ones. But now I bet you they replace that with plastic. So that's actually really good to know, because then that's something that, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't want to
mean, I don't
contribute to
want that
either.
around my eye.
No,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
a really good, I think it's vegan. I definitely is on the cleaner side. Is it Lily and Lolo? I really like their
Oh, I've never
volume
heard of
mascara.
them.
Yeah, because some of the
Ooh.
clean ones actually burn my eyes. I don't know what ingredient that they
Mm.
use to like replace something else, but it a lot of times will burn my eyes. But the Lily and Lolo one's really good.
Awesome. Great
Anyway.
tip. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this and take notes and be like, I'm gonna buy these.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for being a guest today. It's
Thank
been
you so much for
lovely
having me.
talking to you. If you guys are tuning in just now, we will have this available via IGTV. I will also, in the IGTV description, have where you can purchase Bite. Make sure you follow Lindsay right now if you're listening. And then, of course, I will have Bite's Instagram listed as well. And if you are tuning in, but you're not like, I don't have time to watch this, It's also available on all of your podcast listening devices. Thank you so much for being a part of our first live Behind the Beauty podcast, Lindsay, and for those of you guys tuning in.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Bye. Thanks, Erin. See you. Bye.
Bye.